Erika Zini presenta Bookmania.
Interviste, anticipazioni e consigli di lettura per il tempo libero.
Go tell a friend.
Bookmania, dove il libro è protagonista.
Un saluto a tutti e bentornati all'appuntamento con i libri. Oggi abbiamo un ospite speciale per un libro che ci è piaciuto davvero tantissimo. Mi riferisco alla Figurante di Pauline Klein, poi le chiederò se la pronuncia è corretta, pubblicata da Carbonio Editore. L'autrice ha vinto il premio Murat, rilasciato dal Grec dell'Ateneo di Bari, col suo romanzo d'esordio Alice Khan. Il premio Murat, per chi non lo conoscesse, è un prestigioso premio letterario italiano istituito a Bari nel 2001 e assegnato ogni 2 anni. È destinato a premiare un romanzo francese contemporaneo che si ritiene adatto ai gusti del pubblico italiano. La giuria è composta da studenti e docenti di francesistica dell'Università di Bari e da studenti di vari istituti superiori di Bari e provincia. Alice Khan nel 2010 ha vinto anche il Prix Fénéon, anche qui spero nella mia pronuncia, molto prestigioso in Francia per le opere d'esordio. Da segnalare anche la splendida illustrazione, come potete vedere in copertina, di Ralph Pucci, il designer newyorkese che è riuscito a elevare i manichini dalla condizione di anonimi supporti di abiti a vere e proprie opere d'arte. E a questo punto non ci resta che dare il benvenuto a Pauline. Hi Pauline, thank you for being here. It's a very pleasure to have you there. We loved your book, so we are very happy to have the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you.
Your debut book, Alice Khan, I hope the pronounce is correct, has won important award in France, Prix Fénéon, and also in Italy, the Murat Award. It has a recurrent topic that is central also in La Figurante, in this book. The protagonist deals with their identities. Specifically, Camille has no clear ideas about that. She thinks she have to invent a life, create a credible character for others, an imaginary self and a real self who she's not sure who wants to be. What do you think about identity and this need to trace a path that is understandable by others?
Right, it's very current topics in my books. So it was on the first one, as you said, in Alice Khan. Identity was a very important character of the novel, and it's the same for La Figurante. I think no one knows exactly who he or she is. I think it's a very difficult question to answer. I'm not sure anybody would be able to answer it, and that's the purpose of life and existence in general. I mean, anybody who you would ask, what do you think you are, would be incapable of answering it, in at least in the intimacy. But there is a big tendency in the society we live in to promote and publish our identities, to make sure or make others believe that we are actually someone, and that we have different symptoms or different codes that belongs to a group or a certain voice or a certain identity. And young people, but also people of my age or older than me, tend to make efforts and to do whatever they can to belong to a certain identity types. So the character of Camille tried to unbuild that processing of constructing identity, and she's questioning this process. What do we do to build that kind of identities, and is it really aligned with what we deeply are? Because it's an endless question, and most of the time most of us are made of an infinite subjectivity, which doesn't lead or doesn't correspond to any specific character. So she tries to inhabit or to live in that marge that exists between this huge subjectivity that we all are, made of contradictions, oppositions. We most of them have different opinions, different state of mind, according to the weather, according to our what happened in our life, according to if we're in love or if we're angry, or so it's very difficult to exactly stand with one thing in our lives. And so Camille tried to live inside this quite difficult marge which exists between what we tend to make other people believe that what we are and what we deeply are in our intimacy, which is almost impossible to define. And I hope this is a reflection about the impossibility of defining who we are, and the risk that each of us can take by admitting that we are a very complex subjectivity, and that it is really impossible to define what we are, even if we would love to be someone, because there is this very hard and strong injunction these days in our Occidental societies to be who you are or be yourself. But this is a nonsense. For me, it's it's the most abstractive, unreal thing to do or to look for. And I think being yourself doesn't exist. At least at the same time, having a real opinion doesn't exist neither.
Sometimes it's marketing, be yourself.
Exactly, that's an excellent word. I think everybody, myself too. I mean, before doing this Zoom interview, I was wondering how a writer would do her hair. I shouldn't wear makeup because a writer doesn't do that, or I shouldn't have a pink blouse because a writer doesn't wear pink. And so I also have that kind of rules inside myself, trying to be corresponding to what a writer would be. So we all have that kind of mindset in us, but we all tend to do marketing with our own personalities, and sometimes it works. Sometimes it's really inspiring. There are some personalities that succeed in inventing a very inspiring character. Sometimes it do really work, but I wonder how they feel inside, because probably the danger might be that we lose a part of our intimacy.
Yeah, it's an interesting theme, this. On the surface, the reader can think that Camille is limited in a life that does not really represent herself. But in reality, she's building a character to hide herself, to live outside the world. But she's a spectator that can see what really happens and what really people live or think. What do you think about it? Hiding always means to live or carve out space?
This is something that people have been reproaching me in a way in France. Camille doesn't stand anywhere. She doesn't have any opinion. She's hiding herself. We don't know what she's thinking. So that would mean in a way that she would be transparent. She would not exist. I was in a meeting last month with very younger people than I am. And one of the girls who was standing in the meeting told us, if it's not on social network, it doesn't exist. This was very interesting for me, because this is related to your first question. Do you exist when you publish who you are? And even if social network and Instagram is not a very glamorous or inspiring subject, because it's this is something we've been so much talking about, but it is something that, I mean, in medias in general, people are talking about social networks. So it could be heard like something who has been heard already or mentioned already many, many times. But it's actually, I'm sure you are really obsessed with the social networks also. I mean, I don't know if you are, but everybody is a little bit obsessed with it, even if they're fighting more or less with this attraction. So I think we are more and more integrated the fact that if it doesn't exist on social, if it's not on social network, it doesn't exist. And I think even if you're an intellectual, even if you have the feeling of resisting to this huge machine, it's still here. And we tend to ask ourselves, do we really exist if we're not published, if we're not in a literature way or not in an artistic way, but if we don't have an image that at least would be seen by some people. It can be 1 people, it can be 1 million people, but we need other people to validate our existence through an image, through words that are being edited in a few characters. So we all try to enter this formats of words, this format of images that are being marketed by social networks. So it is hard for this character, for Camille, to live like that, because she's not really fighting. I think you can't fight against that. You can't fight against social network because you lose whatever happened, you lose. But you can you can be able not to care. You can be indifferent about it. And this is what Camille is. She doesn't care about that. So she appears maybe to be not existing for other people because she lived in above that that race for image. She's not part of the game. She's not part of this huge party that happens outside yourself. She decided to try to live alone inside herself instead of trying to sell something that doesn't really belong to her.
She's an interesting character. In a world where everyone wants to scream who he or she is, Camille wants to live without noise. She does not fit this reality, and like her, many people. Which is your thought about this social life?
I think, I've been writing the book more than a year ago. It was published in France 1 year ago. And this is something I wanted to say, but maybe we'll say it later. I'm very, very impressed by the way Italian people see the book, because it's very different from what I've been asked for and the interview I had in French. It's very interesting question that I have to answer, and the interview and the topic that I mentioned are quite different. But that was a parenthesis. I was just thinking about that. I'm telling you that the book was a year ago, which means that I forgot some things about her. I forgot some things about Camille. But what I think is it's what I said to you before. She doesn't want to be part of the social network is not only what you have on your phone, it's also real lives. And it's quite difficult sometimes to go from your phone to the real life, because there's bridges between all these worlds. And I think she's trying to cut as much bridges as she can to live alone. She would be very happy in this current situation of lockdown in the world. I think she would be very happy. I was thinking recently that it's funny that I have a dinner tonight with 10 people. I'm not sure I'm gonna go, but I'm sure the people who would be going there would be frustrated not to take pictures of each other having fun, to be able to demonstrate that they had a good time. on social networks. So social life is part of this contamination. It's being contaminated by the image of the group, the image of a voice, and maybe the lockdown is suppressing this capacity of publishing, because you can't have right now with the lockdown, it's forbidden to have a social life. So publishing a social life with entertainment and interesting relationship with other is not authorized anymore. So people have to deal with this, and this is an interesting thing to cut with this social life, and to be able to try to stop this process of publishing the kind of relationship you have with others. Because even now, when you're talking by text message with a friend of yours, there is so many cap screen of fun or interesting conversations that you might have on your screen, that people take cap screen of the discussion and publish it. So even the intimate discussion you might have with someone by text message is a potential communication for other people. So even this is contaminated our intimate relationship with other people. So I wonder where it stops. It has contaminated our bodies, our intimacy, our relationship to other people. And I think this character, Camille, is trying to create other kind of relationship with individual people. I think we have a few people, very few people, which we can be with, who we can have an interesting and authentic time and relationship, and it takes time. So this the immediate thing of publishing on social network is not possible in intimacy. So I think this is something Camille is trying to do, to reboot some kind of authenticity within her relationships.
Camille works for several years in an art gallery, but it's not what we think it is to work there. Reality is often different from what we think. So do us. Our life is not always as it appears. Art is a helpful metaphor for life.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I've been working in art galleries for years. I was in New York working for a secondary market gallery, and it was very interesting because the games of appearance are really present. You can't dress. You have to dress according to the situation. If you go to art auction, you have to dress according to situation. If you are a woman working in the art world, you have to stand well. You have to be well educated. There's many codes you need to integrate in order to be part of it. So for me, it was an interesting sample of what can be a very bourgeois world with its codes and with its references and with its symptoms. And I have endure it like a very private club. And it was interesting because every community, every works, every fields of in life is kind of a club in which you can enter or not. And I've been trying to enter the art club. It was difficult for me because I didn't have the reference at the beginning. My English was not good enough. I was not rich enough to be part of it. Even with my salary I had in the art gallery, I could not afford working in this art gallery because my salary was not big enough. And as I said, you needed to dress and to leave and to go out in specific places that were really expensive. So what was interesting for me in the art world was not much the reference and the metaphor, even if it is a metaphor, of course, of the imposture, the jeu des apparences, the game of the appearance, the surface of things. Of course, it's a good metaphor, but it's also in a financial or working way, or I don't know how you'd say it in English, le monde de l'entreprise, the business, in terms of business. It was really interesting because it's a world that many young ladies wanted to be part of when I was a young lady too. And it's only reserved to men and women who can afford it financially. So it's not like any other jobs. It's not like any other student jobs, because if you don't have the money to work there, you can't work there. Which should be the opposite. You work to earn money, but you need to pay to work in that kind of club. And this is what I thought was interesting, the kind of contract that you sign with your boss in order to work in a gallery was at this time in the end of 2000, maybe not now because I'm not dealing with the art world anymore, but by the time it was working like that.
It's very interesting to go in these arguments. And another recurring topic of your book is loneliness. Some people do everything not to be lonely. Others seeks and desires to stay alone. What do you think about loneliness, and what does it mean for Camille?
Loneliness is a thing that you live with when you are a writer. You're not very lonely because you are inhabited by many things, so you don't really need others. Loneliness might be something that you could feel if you have a lack of a link with other people, or if you feel the need, if you're needy of other people. I'm not sure I feel loneliness because I feel full when I am lonely. I feel full of different thought and characters and lively things. But I think for many people, loneliness is a lack of something, and it might be the consequences of what we were talking right before, of this race of appearance and being part of a group, being part of a voice, being a feminist, being something. I had a hard time, and I still don't know what is my group. What do I belong to? Am I a feminist? Am I someone who talks about? Am I a white writer talking about identity? And sometimes the fact that I was working in the art world, or that I was working in the fashion world, would make me feel a little bit less legitimate from being a writer. So this is something that I was looking for a long time when I was younger. Who am I exactly in terms of working? Am I part of the writer groups? But this is a question that I no longer want to answer. Anyway, to answer about loneliness, this is one of the things that made me believe that I was part of the writer clubs, because I love being lonely, and because I don't really need, I need a world, and I need to hear people talking in the streets and in bars and in dinners, and I need to listen to other people. But I don't need to have them all the time with me. And I think there is a fear of facing yourself for many people. This is what I was saying about be yourself. I mean, there is a wrong way of being yourself. If you want to be yourself, you have to endure loneliness. You have to face it. And it's hard, and it's painful in some ways. But this is a path that you need to cross if you want to lead to a little part of what you might be, with a question mark, because it's still a quest that is really difficult to end. It never ends. But many people don't want to face this subjectivity and this infinite thing that we all are, made of contradictions and of unsolved problems and unsolved questions. So they decide to create something that they like a sculpture, and they decide to belong to this culture or to belong to that group that is enough inspiring for them to believe that they are part of it. And I think loneliness would be a good therapy for people who are sick of being something, because loneliness can be is a I think it's a you need courage to do it, but I think we are facing times where loneliness is being refused because it's too long, it's too painful, it's too dangerous to cross. But this is why the lockdown is an interesting thing too, because we all facing it, and I think this is why people are so depressing, and so which I can understand in many ways, because I'm very lucky to be able to face it, even if financially it's of course difficult, but we're not talking about that right now. But in terms of personality, this is something that most people are not used to live and to face.
Yeah, so we have too many labels. We would like to have them, but there is no necessities to have them.
Yeah.
Finally, what would you like to stay with the reader after finishing reading your book?
I think the question of loneliness is interesting. I think first of all, I would like them. I mean, this is not something you can ask anyone or any readers. I'm not asking any readers to stay with anything. I would say that I would love them to know that they have read my book, because the worst thing is when you read a book and you don't remember that you were reading it, or you can't remember that you have read it. This is the worst thing. So if they remember that they have read it, this is good enough for me. I would be proud enough and I would be thankful enough of them to remember it, to remember that it has existed one day. And they do whatever they want with it, actually. it's not mine anymore. It's this is something I wrote, but this is something that belonged to them, even it's a very cliche thing to say. And I just hope they don't feel nothing about it, because it might be something that you could feel after reading the book, that what is this girl, what is she thinking? She doesn't take any position, she doesn't have any opinion, she's useless, she's just crossing the life with indifference and no color, no voice, nothing. So I hope the readers can just try to look where I've looked by writing the book. I've tried to look under, and I hope this is a story that would make people want to look under sometimes.
It's a good advice. And I'm sure they can also remember this book. It's impossible to forget it. Absolutely. And Camille is a very interesting character, so they will have it in mind in the future. I leave you the virtual microphone one last time if you would like to send a message to your Italian readers.
No, I told you 10 minutes ago that I was very happy by the way Italian people are receiving the book, in a very different way than it was received in France. Not better but different. And I'm very intrigued by some questions that I'm asked about, because this is a book that I know. This is a book that I've been reading more than a year ago. Much more than 2 years ago, actually, because it went out a year ago in France. So it's like I'm very thankful to the Italian people who have read the book and who have interviewed me, because it has renewed the way I've seen the book so far. And I had a very old image of this book, because it's my last book and I'm writing something else. So for me, La Figurante was something I didn't want to hear anymore about. But they have refreshed the vision that I have of it. So I'm very grateful for that.
And we look forward to hear more about you, Alice Kahn. Why not in the future? Carbonio is a very good editor
They should
here in
translate.
Italy that have a specific chance for author interesting like you. So we can expect to read more about you. And now we thank you for being here to talk about your book. We hope to meet in the future as soon as possible here in Italy. It would be a very fantastic.
Thank you. I would love to see you when all this thing will be done.
Erika Zini presenta Bookmania.
Interviste, anticipazioni e consigli di lettura per il tempo libero.
Go tell a friend.
Bookmania, dove il libro è protagonista.